Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another exciting episode of Nazarene Talk. Once again, I'm with you, Pastor Kevin, and I'm proud to have my cohort with me, Pastor Jeremiah.
That's right.
How are you today, Pastor Jeremiah?
It's good to be with you, Pastor Kevin.
Now, if you remember last week, we had this slight problem with this continuum crossover that we created by accident, and we tried to fix it, and I think we might have made it a little worse.
Yes.
So we're still working on it, and hopefully by next week we'll have it completely fixed. But I thought, Jeremiah, while we had an opportunity, and he's not here, we could talk about Pastor Kevin.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk. Let's throw him under the bus. Let's do it.
And last week we kind of talked all about Jeremiah, how he got started, where he went to seminary school, and all that kind of stuff. So, what's Kevin's story?
Yeah, Kevin's story goes a little like this. Kevin was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and when he was in high school, he picked the easiest subject that he could find to go to college, and he went to a community college in Memphis and majored in PE. But when he got to college and realized that PE is not a major in itself, it's actually called health in PE, and he realized that he had to take all these health courses and did a terrible job at a community college in Memphis, and then left Memphis, got married, started a family. When he was about 25 years old, he accepted Jesus as a Savior and entered into a life-changing commitment to the Lord. And at 26, he answered the call to ministry and attended Nazarene Bible College, and then pastored in Springfield, Missouri. And after he pastored in Springfield, Missouri, pastors now in Chanute, Kansas, at the Church of the Nazarene here. And before he moved, when he was in Springfield, he got ordained as a pastor and in the Church of the Nazarene, and that's kind of his story in a nutshell.
And you guys had an opportunity to work with each other for about a year.
About a year now, about 15 months actually.
And you guys seem to have a dynamic where you're getting along pretty good.
Yeah, we get along really well. Yeah, I think we probably get along better than probably most. I think it's a great relationship, great ministry relationship, great friendship, great working relationship, all of that.
Now, do you find that having a church where you have a group of ministers, you have your seniors, associates, your different types of ministries. Mm-hmm. Do you find like when you have a group of ministers that are harmonious with each other, that it tends to work better than a church just with one pastor?
Yeah, I think so. I think that we found that studies show that churches that have 2 or 3 or multiple pastors are more effective than churches that just have one pastor. In fact, there was a study that was done that said that a pastor can only effectively minister to about 70 people. And so for every 70 people, you need to add a staff person to your church, which is why you see most churches will never get above 50, 60, 70 because the financial reasons. But anyway, they can only pastor 70 people. And that's why you have to take steps of faith and add staff before you have the next 70. And so we do that same thing kind of at the church. And so when I started, there was about 70 people, and Jeremiah got there, we were about 120, and then we added a staff at about 200, give or take a little, and we added a staff, and we're about 240, 250, and so we have to continually, because a person can only effectively minister to 70 people. That's what studies show. And if you're really outgoing, you can maybe minister to 100 people, 150. I've heard of one pastor that could effectively minister to about 300 people, which would be crazy. The guy probably has no life away from the church. But yeah, we do think that team ministry is more effective than solo ministry.
It gives a little bit more intimacy between you and the congregation as well. And like you said, you mentioned that being a minister is more than just spending an hour on Sunday.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a full-time job, and you have to have a relationship with your congregation, and you have to respond to their needs, and you have emergencies that come up that you have to attend to now and then. Now, the difference mainly between Pastor Kevin and Pastor Jeremiah is Pastor Kevin is ordained and Jeremiah is not. So can you tell us a little bit about what the ordained means and what you can and cannot do with it? I mean, anybody can get on the internet, and for $29.99 and 2 box tops, you can become an ordained minister. But this is something entirely different. This is for real. This is legitimate. This is going through the process. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, the process for ordination is about a 3 to 4 year process where you take a rigorous amount of courses during that time, and you got to serve a year-long internship at a church, and you have to have supervised ministry during that time. And once you get ordained, And ordination is really either on top of college, and so it's almost like a master's type program or a seminary type program in the Church of the Nazarene. And so it's about 3 to 4 years, and once you become ordained, it's basically the church's affirmation saying that they affirm you and that they believe that you're called, and you have the full authority and support of the Church of the Nazarene, which whatever denomination you get ordained in, usually when you get ordained, you have the full support of the church by then. And basically, ordination in the Church of the Nazarene, an ordained pastor can baptize, can do communion, can do weddings, but a licensed pastor like Jeremiah is going through. He's a licensed pastor in the Church of the Nazarene, can have a supervised ministry under an ordination ordained pastor. And so basically, every year that you're in ministry, you're first year license, second year license, third year license, fourth year license, and then ordination after that. If you do it in that process, it usually takes about 4 years. You have 10 years to complete the course of study before your time expires, and so. During every one of those years towards ordination, you get evaluated and see how you're doing. I did mine in 3 years just because I just went hard. I worked extremely hard during that 3-year period. And Jeremiah will be ordained. Pastor Kevin's already ordained. Jeremiah will be ordained next year.
It's kind of hard to talk about yourself.
It is. Third person is hard to talk about it.
Especially if you're not used to it. You got to try that during one of your sermons one time.
Yes, that would throw me off.
I
can start and probably end, but in the middle I would probably get lost in myself.
Now, Pastor Jeremiah, his passion was mainly a lot through music, and he's a natural. He kind of like picked it up automatically. He's a fantastic musician in many regards, and yours is athletic.
Yeah. I would say somewhat.
From boxing to your favorite baseball.
Yes.
And I understand that you were third baseman for the Cubs for quite some time before you decided to give it up.
Yes, that's right. I gave up my professional dreams of baseball. Never actually on the field. When I was in high school, though, I wanted to play professional baseball. And the thing about baseball, what I found is that there's so many professional teams that are out there, so many amateur leagues, so many minor league clubs out there. If you're decent, you can play baseball somewhere. Really, I think anywhere you might not get paid anything, but you could play professional baseball for somebody. But it didn't pan out that way. I guess I wasn't decent enough.
Now, you seem to use the reference of your baseball desires and your athletic passion in a lot of your sermons. Mm-hmm. Is there a relationship there that allows you to communicate with your congregation on terms of understanding better, or why do you do that?
Well, some preachers are called text preachers. Well, they're just basically write a manuscript and read it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some preachers are maybe visual illustration preachers, which I'll use visual illustrations, but some preachers, what I found, there's more of a relation in storytelling preachers, where they have the text or various texts, and they're filled with stories around it. And I think Jesus did this. Jesus was great at parable telling. When the parables that he told of the day were very engaging, and people were just intrigued by what he was saying because they were so used to kind of boring and dry preachers. And so why not follow the best example that we have, which is Jesus' preaching, which he was a storyteller. And I love telling stories, and there's something about stories that resonate with people, and so that's why I love telling stories when I preach. But I think baseball stories, kid stories, wife stories, trip stories, weekly situation stories, whatever the case may be. Storytelling is a big. Storytelling is why do we love to see movies? Because we love great stories. And why do we watch sitcoms? Because we love great stories. And so we try to kind of bring the same dynamic, the same aspect, not entertainment, but sermons. I think it's okay to be entertaining during sermons, so you can keep attention. Some people might say, you can't be entertaining. No, I think you can be entertaining when you preach.
It's whatever you have to use to get the message across.
That's right.
And keep people's attention.
Yeah.
And
it's hard. It's hard to keep people's attention my sermons are about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the week. And it's not as easy as you think it is to keep attention. That's why there's so many stories and jokes and maybe sometimes participation from the congregation to read the scripture together, or anything you can to keep everybody's attention. Pacing, walking, getting in people's face.
Yeah. And scanning your congregation and seeing if they're with you or if you've lost them.
Usually you can tell if you've lost them.
And then you have to regroup quickly in your head. And
a lot of times we don't have a regrouping plan, because once you lose them, it's really
you're
hard.
Winging it.
Yeah, once you lose them, it's really hard to get them back.
Yeah. Now, Jeremiah, Kevin's come up with a lot of really crazy stories. Do you think you over-exaggerate some of them, or do you think that he really has been in the boxing ring and taken down Goliath and all these things with his
stories,
baseball stories, and like sometimes he says, "Okay, I'm just kidding," mostly with his wife, because she's sitting there and he knows that he's going to have to pay for that comment.
That's right. That's right.
But
well, there's actually, if you want to see Pastor Kevin's boxing video, go to YouTube and type in Kevin McDonald, PAL, P-A-L, which is Police Athletic League, PAL Boxing, and there's a video of his second fight that's posted, and you'll see the rigorous beating that he received and that he gave in the same fight. And actually, somebody was on Facebook the other day, says I want to see Pastor Kevin's baseball pictures of when he played baseball, and my mom got wind of it, and so my mom went through pictures of her house and posted all these baseball pictures on Facebook. But I think storytelling's fun. I think that there's always a joking side to stories, and you don't really realize how funny your situations are until you're out of the situation, and so it's fun to joke, to tell those stories and to relive them in your mind and a lot of times I think that we make our past more than what it was, and I don't mean like an exaggeration. I mean like more exciting. I remember, I tell the funny story about how when my second child was born, they had this curtain up, and my wife was having a C-section, and they were cutting her open, and I looked over the curtain because I was curious what was on the other side, and that's a funny story to tell, and I make the joke. I looked over the curtain and I saw something I never want to see again, know, and so that's the joke of it. But I mean, at the time I'm thinking, shouldn't have looked over the curtain, what am I thinking? But now I can make it funny, because it's a funny joke, that type thing. And so, or the time you hit a inside the park home run, at the time you're not thinking about how great or exciting it was. He's like, I hit his inside the park home run, and it becomes a funny story because I've only hit one inside the park home run, and actually it wasn't even a home run. I got out at home plate, but I was close to a home run, Those type things. I think sometimes we make our past more than, when we look at our past, it's almost points of comedy or points of just reliving that excitement, and we make it more than what it is.
So now when you say you read your audience, or the congregation, I guess is the more proper term to utilize in a church, you can tell whether or not they're with you or not with you. So do you kind of like, okay, I've got them, I know where I'm going with this, and so then you change your thought process and you keep going down that path, versus like, okay, I've lost these people, what am I going to do? My mind is shuffling, I grab this, I grab that, that's not working, I'm panicking, I'm starting to sweat, oh my goodness. In one way or another, you are kind of like an entertainer in that aspect, even though that you're a minister, but yet you still have to get a message and appeal to your congregation.
Yeah, and usually what I do when I've realized that I've lost a congregation, I'll usually bail and cut it short and get out of there and run, because it's almost impossible to win a congregation back after you lose them.
You don't ever like just stop and just crack a joke or something like that?
Yeah, and I might do that to get everybody's attention back, maybe unconscious, or maybe conscious, not even realizing what I'm doing unconsciously. But I think that's why I put within my sermon so many stories and so many jokes and so many different points, because when you're storytelling, people are engaged. When you're joking, people are laughing. When you're point preaching, it causes their mind to jump from one topic to the next, and so it keeps their attention. So there's creative things that we don't say, we're doing this to be creative, but we do creative things to keep the audience engaged. It's like, actors do this. I'm not saying I'm an actor by any means, and athletes do this. That's why they have innings in baseball and quarters in basketball, and that's why you have announcers that'll, you can't just watch a basketball game. You need an announcer to announce the basketball game to you. So there's creative things that athletics do too. When you go to the circus, you can watch the circus without a ringmaster, but you have to have a ringmaster, to keep everybody's attention. And so, there's those things that we try to do, and that you kind of just really just learn. I mean, I make the joke that I don't think I've applied anything hardly in my course of study through ordination, through my education. I think I've learned it all firsthand, through the hard way. And so I've had sermons where people have slept and people have walked out. And actually, I was preaching one sermon.
Really? They've actually walked?
I was preaching at my last church one time. There was an older guy, a really good guy, but he thought church should get out at a certain time every day. And one time I exceeded this time, and so in the middle of the sermon, he just got up, him and his wife, older couple, they just got up and walked out of the church. But he was fine. He wasn't upset. He just says church should get out at this time. And so I've had times like that. But I think that we should be respectful of people's time on Sundays. This is why you have some preachers, and I know this is a point of criticism, I'm sure. Some preachers will preach to about 2 or 3, and if that church is used to that, then that's okay. But if you tell your people, and people are used to getting out of there, if you start a service at 10:45, people are used to getting out at 12:15. We should do our best to honor that time,
especially if they have plans.
They have plans, and people get 2 days off a week. Let's honor their time off the best we can.
Now let's get a little bit more serious about that, because that's just a time of worship.
Yeah,
it's not really a visitation or an entertainment process where I'm going to go watch a pastor and for the next hour I'm at a play or something.
Yeah.
This is a time of public worship that you are associating yourself with God, which you could do anywhere.
Yeah.
But to me, when you mention that, time is up, I get up and leave, I would think that you're getting up and leaving on God.
Yeah. Well, I think that God works in every area of the service. He works in the parking lot. He works in the planning of the service. A lot of people say, I don't write a sermon, I just say what God. I think God works. God's a planner. He planned creation, and then day 1 he did this, day 2 he did this. The whole Old Testament is planning for Jesus to come to earth, and so God's a planner, and God's a God that works in all areas of the church. There was a church one time, Andy Stanley, who's a big pastor in Georgia, tells the story about a time that he had somebody come to his church to guest preach. And Andy Stanley said, listen, you have 20 minutes to preach. Just be respectful of that. People want to be out of here in 20 minutes. Well, the guy gets done and preaches for an hour. And Stanley goes to him afterwards, and he said, man, you preached a really good sermon, but let you know that you went over by about 40 minutes. And some people missed appointments, they missed meetings, they missed quality time with their family. And this is what the guy said. The guy said, well, I was following the Spirit's leading. And Andy Stanley looked at the guy, the guest preacher, and he says this. He says, you think the Spirit only leads through you, through the pastor? The Spirit leads through every area of the service, the time management of the service, the soundboard, the parking lot, the people's family time when they go to lunch afterwards and spend time with their family. God's God that works within that. He doesn't just work through the pastor on Sunday mornings, and so we try to respect that and honor that. Now, and if we are going to go over, it's usually if we have something special like a baptism or bringing people into church membership, and you have to add this in. But even then, we'll try to cut something out to add that in. But we believe that a personal relationship with Christ is not a Sunday morning thing.
Right, exactly.
And so if you have an hour and 20-minute service, that's just to come and kind of get refreshed and collective worship, which is good, and corporate worship. But your individual relationship with the Lord should be daily time in prayer, and should be a small group if you can be in a small group, and should be in serving others as often as you can. That's how your relationship with the Lord. If you're dependent on an hour and 20-minute church service or a 5-hour church service on Sunday to improve your relationship with God, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, because there are a lot of your so-called Sunday Christians where they are all about church on Sunday and family day, but then the rest of the week they're not.
Yeah.
So that beyond that stage is a very important thing. Not only to not look hypocritical to everybody else, or so I see you differently on Sunday than I see you everywhere else. Well, there's going to be different environments with work and different things like that, but you are the same person, regardless of where you are, and your commitment to God and your relationship within your religion is the same.
Yeah. Well, I love what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. He said this. He says, Sunday is the locker room, Monday to Saturday is the game. And imagine an athlete that goes to the locker room, the coach gives a very inspirational church talk, and the team celebrates together, they take the field, and they get out on the field and they don't play the game. And I think that it's the same way in the church. I think that we come to be encouraged and to celebrate and rejoice together, and collectively we're stronger together so we can accomplish more. to collectively, I think, for the kingdom. But it's just the locker room. And then Monday we go out and we live the life, and Tuesday we go out and live the life, and Wednesday, and by Saturday we're so tired and drained we need Sunday morning to fill us back up again. And so that's what the church should be.
Okay, well, great. Parting comments?
Parting comments. Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. Parting comment on this side is basically what you were talking about. Is, you're a Christian full-time, 24/7.
Yeah.
And you can have your own idea of what works for you as far as being a religious person and following that religion that you have. But do you feel that it is important that you should have an open time of worship at a church, at a congregation, or a group to help share that and learn more? Because the trend throughout the United States is people are becoming their own, and they feel that they don't need that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're often asked the question, can you be a Christian and not go to church? And I say, yeah, you can be a Christian and not go to church. But do you need to go to church? Yeah, you need to go to church. And because we need, there's 5 things in the book of Acts, which Acts spells out what the early church looked like. You have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then the book of Acts, which is just the early church. And there's 5 things that says that the believers did together. And I hope I can remember the 5 things as I say them. They had fellowship together. They spent time together. They broke bread together. They ate together. They shared what they had with each other. They enjoyed the apostles' teaching, or not enjoyed. They had the apostles' teaching, and they took communion. And so these are the 5 things that and I hope I got those right. The 5 things that the early church did in the book of Acts, and because of it, they were stronger together. They created a family together. That's what the church is. There's a great preacher by the name of Alan Hirsch that says that our churches don't need community, because in a community you share the same streets and you share the same Walmart and you share the same restaurants and you say, hey, that's what community is. Our churches need communitas, which is a Latin word, which is something stronger and deeper than a community. Communitas is like, if community is living in the same neighborhood, communitas is living in the same house, where you share the refrigerator and you share the couch. And he said that's what our churches need.
And the remote control.
Remote control. You share remote control. That's right. And so you share. You have everything in common, and you share what you have. And that's why I think we need the church. And we need each other. 2 are better than 1. They catch each other when they fall. And there's something about corporate worship together, and something about growing together, in the faith. And there's something about sharing struggles with each other in small groups. And there's something about, you think about collectively, you take an offering on Sunday. And I know the church gets criticized a lot for offerings, but you think about, you might have $10 in your pocket, and that $10 can maybe do something, but you think about 100 people giving $10 in the pocket. You can do so much more with that type of money. Our church is big. We send 15% of our income out to other countries to help Haiti and to help South America and to help Africa. The church is there and pastors there, and help with food relief and disaster relief and things like that. And so collectively, we're stronger together, I think. And so can you be a Christian without the church? Yeah, but do you need the church? Yeah, you need the church.
And the church needs you.
The church needs you, yeah. And there was a lady that we did something called the drive-through difference when I first started. And it's where you took this certificate to McDonald's, and it says, I paid, or to a drive-through in town, to Sonic, or Taco John's, wherever, and it says, I paid for your lunch is on me from Chanute Church of the Nazarene. And so you would go to the drive-thru, you pay for the person behind you, and they would get it. And this lady came to me, who was confused on it a couple weeks later, and she says, hey, what's this about this coupon to get a free meal at a fast food restaurant? And I said, oh, it's not a free meal, it's like you pay for the person behind you. And she's like, oh, I thought it was courtesy of the Church of the Nazarene. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, it is courtesy of the Church of the Nazarene, but you're a part of the Church of the Nazarene, so it's courtesy of the Church of the Nazarene. And so we make the church. The church is never a building. We just need a place to worship together, and meet together and have organization and offices and administration and prayer rooms and Sunday school classes. But the church is never a building. It's a group of communitas, a group of believers that have everything in common in their relationship with the Lord. And that's what church should be.
That's awesome.
I could preach a sermon on that, but
yeah,
I'll probably lose everybody in translation.
Well, we appreciate you joining in and staying with us and working with us on this cross continuum that we've got going on here. And
well, I think next week, Pastor Kevin will be joining me next week. Did I say that right? If I'm Jeremiah, then
Yeah, you're Jeremiah, and
I think
I believe that that we're going to have the same problem with the Ragamuffin filming here in a little bit. So if you watch the Ragamuffin, which sometimes follows the show, you'll see Jeremiah, but he might look a little different.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Till next time. See you later.